Good day, everyone. My name is Marivis Alprashantola, and I'm going to discuss to you the Unit 3 Learning in the Context of Technologies. Then, linking learning objectives, pedagogies, and technologies will be discussed by Wilmarie Lima.
So, for the chapter outline, there are cognitivism, behaviorism, constructivism, and other learning theories. Finally, technology enhanced learning will be described briefly and elaborately. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to clarify the background and main ideas of different learning theories, then state the relationship of technology and learning theories, and lastly, you would be able to describe the impact of learning theories on teaching, including behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, connectivism, and humanism. So, in learning theories, learning happens everywhere and every day for everybody. But what is learning? So, in most psychological theories, learning is defined as a persistent change in human performance or performance potential by Lohr and Chang. So, this definition encompasses many of the attributes commonly associated with behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. So, according to Spector, the changes could include one's ability, attitudes, beliefs, knowledge, and skills. Lastly, learning theories are conceptual frameworks describing how knowledge is absorbed, processed, retained during learning. In overall, learning is a process that brings together personal and environmental experiences and influences for acquiring, enriching, or modifying one's knowledge, skills, values, attitudes, behaviors, and worldviews. The first learning theory is behaviorism. So, behaviorism is a perspective that focuses almost exclusively on directly observable things to explain learning. So, the main representatives of behaviorism includes John B. Watson, Boris F. Skinner, and Edward L. Thorndike. The major idea of behaviorism includes the following. First, the learning process is gradual attempt and error until the consistent success is attained. According to Thorndike, learning takes place by trial and error. So some people call it learning by selection of the successful variant. So accordingly, when no ready-made solution of a problem is available to the learner, he adopts the method of trial and error. He first tries one solution, then if does not help him, he rejects it, then he tries another, and so on. In this way, he eliminates error or irrelevant responses which do not serve the purpose and finally discovers the correct solution. Next is the key to learning success depends on reinforcement. In teaching profession, it is common for teachers to reach a point where they feel that their student could need a little extra push to keep them on track. So teachers can control learning by providing instructional reinforcement when the students makes a move to the desired direction. Lastly, learning involves a stimulus-response sequence. So stimulus-response theory agrees that when a test begins, unconditioned response may result. So despite this response, learning eventually takes place. The impact of teaching of behaviorism. Operant conditioning is a type of learning in which the strength of behavior is modified by the behavior consequences such as reward or punishment. Okay, next learning theories is cognitivism. According to cognitivism, learning is not a stimulus-response sequence, but the formation of cognitive structures. So the learners do not simply receive stimuli mechanically and react passively, but rather learners process stimuli and determine appropriate response. So the main representatives include Jean Piaget, Jerome Bruner, David Ausubel, and Robert Gagne. So the main ideas of cognitivism, learning is conceptualized as the acquisition of knowledge. Learning is not a stimulus-response sequence, but the affirmation of cognitive structures. So these are the impact on teaching of cognitivism. Next learning theories is constructivism. So constructivism holds the learning is the process of constructing internal psychological representation in the process of the interaction with the environment. So these main ideas are based on the works of John Dewey and Lev Vygotsky. So these elements of constructivism include context, collaboration, conversation, and meaning making. This means teachers should not teach a learner in a traditional way, but should encourage students to cooperate or interact with peers. So students should process information and construct meaning of knowledge actively rather than listen to teachers passively. Impact of teaching of constructivism. First, pay attention to the design of learning scenario. The teacher should design multidimensional learning scenarios so that learners can understand the concept of principles from various aspects and then develop problem solving. Second, emphasize the learner's active role. So focus on cultivating students' self-management skills to stimulate the necessary psychological state and prior knowledge for learning. Lastly, pay attention to the contribution of error concept to learning. This situated cognition theory treats the aim and process as unity. Therefore, even the erroneous concept being produced in the process of learning, it is also has a positive contribution to the construction of the whole knowledge structures. Next will be other learning theories. Connectivism and humanism play an important role in guiding teaching and learning activities. The last topic will be technology enhanced learning. So, learning theories and technologies are connected and intertwined by information processing and knowledge acquisition. In order to understand the technology enhanced learning, it is useful to look at the technologies used in different periods of history when a different learning theories emerged and became popularity. From the 1920s to 1960s, behaviorism was proposed and came to be dominant, so some technologies were adopted in the process of teaching, such as the automatic teaching machine and chemo card. So, teaching machine was mainly used for automated testing of students. So, it is also includes the principle of allowing students to set their own pace, positive response, and timely feedback. In addition, student can find out whether his response is correct or not, and a record may be kept which aids in improving the materials. Cognitivism became dominant in 1970s and 1980s. Many early educational technology developments occurred in university settings, and these were often associated with various computer technologies such as Plato or the programmed logic for automated teaching operations and logo. Many modern concepts in multi-user computing were developed in Plato, including forums, message boards, online testing, email, chat rooms, picture language, instant messaging, remote screen sharing, and multiplayer games. From the 1980s, constructivism started to become dominant, so interactive multimedia, internet, and other modern technologies were applied in teaching and learning. In the technology supported learning environments, learners could construct their own knowledge actively in interactions with the environment and through the reorganization of their mental structures. With the rapid development of information technology, MOOCs, social networking, cloud computing, and etc. are widely used in teaching and learning. MOOCs are used in the distance education, which were first introduced in 2006 and emerged as a popular mode of learning in 2012. So overall, information technology has become an important tool of education, and it is not only rich in information resources but also can extend human capacity and expands the social environment of supporting learning. In the future, with the development of information technology, learning theories will be improved and developed further. The theories of instructional design will be more mature and more scientific. The practice of educational technology will be promote to continuous development of the learning theory and will promote each other. And that would be all my topic. Thank you for watching and listening. So these are the key points in this chapter.
So, good day again, everyone. So, now let us proceed to the next topic, which is about linking learning objectives, pedagogies, and technologies. So here's our topic outline. First is linking instructional strategies to learning objectives. Second is the types of technology for educational uses, and also the principles for the selection of technology for educational uses. So by the end of this chapter, you will be able to differentiate types of learning objectives, select an appropriate instructional strategy for a given learning objective, and identify the types of pedagogical approaches and associate the technologies to suit particular types of learning, and also provide advice on how to match types of pedagogical approaches and technologies to types of learning. So under the linking instructional strategies to learning objectives, we have here the Gagné's types of learning objectives, which are the verbal information, cognitive strategy, intellectual skills, attitude, and also motor skills. And also under the linking instructional strategies to learning objectives, we have here the instructional strategies, which are the drill and practice, tutorial instruction, exploratory instruction, interactive simulation, Socratic questioning, and lecture, and also the other pedagogies. So in this chapter, we argue that a theoretically consistent approach to learning design is to interrelate pedagogical theory with the desired features of learning, and then to map relevant activities and tools along with human and technical resources against learning goals and an appropriate pedagogical approach. The phrases pedagogical approach and instructional strategy are used interchangeably, although some scholars argue that there are differences in that learning includes non-formal situations as well as structured and formal learning situations. So in the analysis phase of planning instruction, it is reasonable for a designer to consider the kinds of things to be learned by Anderson and Krathwohl. There are three domains of learning, which are the cognitive domain, attitude domain, and motor skills. In cognitive domain, its objectives is to emphasize thinking. In attitude domain, its objectives is to emphasize the feeling. While in also the motor skills domain, its objectives is to emphasize acting. No, psychomotor. Dapat psychomotor ni. I'm sorry. According to Robert Garnier, there are 5 different kinds of things that can be learned, and these are verbal information, intellectual skills, cognitive strategies, attitude, and motor skills. Who is Robert Gagne? Robert Gagne is an American educational psychologist, which is best known for his book, The Condition of Learning. So here's the types of Gagne's types of learning. First is a verbal information. Verbal information, also known as the declarative knowledge, which is stating facts, as in knowing that. And verbal information includes foundational information required for problem solving. Its point is only talking about information by rote or by memorizing the information repeatedly, and not by talking about how to apply or use it, just knowing that it is. Say for example, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. As we all know, this formula is all about Pythagorean theorem. Without any explanations, we can say that it is a Pythagorean theorem. It's just we know that this formula is that kind of theorem. Next is the intellectual skills. It's all about having procedural knowledge or knowing how. So intellectual skills has its 5 subcategories, which is hierarchically ordered. First in below discrimination. Second is concrete concept. Third is rule using. And lastly, and the top is the problem solving. Discrimination involves distinguishing one object, feature, or symbol from another on the basis of perceptual characteristics or our five senses. You may not be able to name or explain differences, but you just recognize it that it is there by putting things in category based on perceptual features, on what you see, hear, touch, smell, or taste. Just like this example, or just like the figure below under the discrimination text. Second is the concrete concept. Concrete concept is identifying and using appropriate concepts, classes of objects, features, events distinguishable by perceptual characteristics and also identifiable by name. As we can see the figure, we can say that it is a circle. It is a circle. We can say that it is a circle because it is based on a concrete concept that is related to the color, to the shape rather. Sorry. And also we can say that it is red based on concrete concept that is related to the color. And when the concept is defined, it can be recognized by perceptual characteristics, but by definition itself. Say, for example, it is circle because it is comprised of 360 degrees or whatever attributes that makes it a circle. Next is the rule using. Rule using is applying a rule to a given situation. By looking for this illustration or this figure, beside the rule using definition, if we know what formula we could use, say for example on this right triangle, to figure out the unmeasured side, whether A, B, or C, assuming that that's two sides are given, well, if we know what we'll use the formula, if we know that we'll use the formula of Pythagorean theorem, and then by knowing how to use its formula is an example of rule using under in the intellectual skills. While in problem solving, it is combining lower level rules to solve challenging problems. Aim of the most learning task and the tasks are often complicated. So in problem solving, it is a combination of applying or using some rules to solve complex problems. Say for example, in proving. Next is the cognitive strategy. It is an internal process by which the learner controls his or her own ways of thinking and learning in selecting an appropriate approach to solve a particular problem. In cognitive strategy, the term cognitive strategies in its simplest form is the use of the mind or the cognition, to solve a problem or complete a task. Activities which can be described as cognitive strategies include making mind maps, visualization, association, mnemonics, using clues in reading comprehension, underlining keywords, scanning, and self-testing, and also monitoring. Next is the attitude. As we all know, attitude is an internal state which affect an individual's choice of action towards some object, person, or event. Something that we feel inside that leads us to behave in a particular way, like this picture below, which is the example of attitude. It's recycling, as we all know. Next is the motor skills. Motor skills include physical skills and bodily movements involving muscular activity.
Say, for example, this figure shows that learning how to drive a bike. And also, some examples includes drawing straight line, changing a flat tire, and the like. That includes physical skills and bodily movements. That's what it is. So in summation or summarization, the 5 types of learning are, by Gagne, are intellectual skills, cognitive strategy, verbal information, attitude, and motor skills. Intellectual skills, cognitive strategy, and verbal information is under the what? Guess what? Yeah, under the what? Cognitive, kalimut ko ano to? Under the cognitive domain, yeah. And the attitude is under the affective domain, and then the motor skills is under the psychomotor state. No, psychomotor domain. Next is the linking instructional strategies to learning objectives. So what are those instructional strategies or pedagogies? First is the drill and practice. Drill and practice is appropriate for learning verbal information that for whatever reason must be committed to memory. It can be useful for motor skills, verbal information, and intellectual skills under discrimination and concept use. Next is the tutorial instruction, it is appropriate for learning simple procedures or how to navigate within a particular software system. Say for example, this figure below. Tutorial instruction is useful for verbal information, intellectual skills under discrimination, concept use, and rule using. Next is exploratory instruction. It is appropriate for promoting understanding about phenomena new to the learners. It is useful for intellectual skills under rule using, problem solving, and also in the cognitive strategy. Next is the interactive simulation. It is appropriate for promoting critical reasoning about dynamic and also complex system. Interactive simulation is useful for intellectual skills under rule using and also their cognitive strategy. Next is Socratic questioning. It is appropriate for helping a learner link something new and seemingly unfamiliar to something they already understood. The Socratic approach to questioning is based on the practice of disciplined, thoughtful dialogue. Socrates, the early Greek philosopher or teacher, believed that disciplined practice of thoughtful questioning enabled the students to examine ideas logically and to determine the validity of those ideas. Next is the common instructional strategies, which is the lecture. It is appropriate for introducing a new topic and creating some motivation and an appropriate foundation for that topic. Next is the mastery learning. Mastery learning level focuses on attaining mastery level, yeah. So for example, grade A as an indicator of mastery of a subject by almost all of the student. Next is the programmed learning. Programmed learning is a method or technique of giving or receiving individualized instruction from a variety of sources such as programmed textbook, teaching machine, and computers with or without the help of teachers. Next is the simulation. Simulations are instructional scenarios where the learner is placed in a world defined by the teacher, a technique for providing training to the students. They represent a reality within which students interact. The teacher controls the parameters of this world and uses it to achieve the desired instructional results. It used in multiple ways and multiple works of life. Some examples include fire drills and simulation used in healthcare to teach skills or prepare for emergency, just like the picture shows. It shows the practice of CPR or the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Next is direct teaching or instruction. Direct teaching is a step-by-step, lesson-by-lesson approach to teaching which is scripted and follows a predetermined skill acquisition sequence. For example, is written or video lectures. Next is the inductive thinking. It uses experience and proven observations to guess the outcome. The goal is to predict a likely outcome. It is a method of drawing conclusions by going from specific to general. Say, for example, the, the statement of, I see fireflies in my backyard every summer. Then the hypothesis of that statement is, in this summer, I will probably see fireflies in my backyard. Another example is statement that every boy I've met is a liar. Therefore, I can conclude that most boys are usually liars. No offense, it's just an example, okay? Next is the concept attainment. Concept attainment engages students in forming their own definition of a concept by examining the attributes of several examples and non-examples of the word concept or topic. It is an inductive process that helps bring meaning to concepts or help construct concepts through the searching for common characteristics called attributes. In concept attainment, the student compares like examples and contrasts them with unlike examples. Next is the advanced organizers. Asobel describes advanced organizers as introductory materials or activities presented ahead of the learning task and at a higher level of abstraction and inclusiveness than the learning task itself. It reminds students of what they already know and help them organize the new information they're about to take in. Examples of advanced organizers include analogies and metaphors, as well as graphic organizers such as Venn diagrams and KWL charts. Next is group investigation. From the word itself, group, it is a learning model that emphasizes the ability to think of students through group activities to investigate specific problems or topics. Next is the classroom meeting strategy. It is a multi-purpose approach for classroom management by setting aside time for students to discuss classroom issues as a group. Class meetings provide an opportunity to come together as a community. The goal is to provide a safe and open environment for students to share concerns, explore their feelings, and also support each other. Next is project-based learning approach. It is designed to give students the opportunity to develop knowledge and skills through engaging projects and set around challenges and problems they may face in the real world. Example, film a documentary. First, divide the classroom into teams. Next, choose topics and then plan production. Next is film and review, edit raw footage, create promotional materials, and then lastly, screen the documentaries or show it in class. Next is the inquiry-based learning approach. It is a learning process that engages students by making real-world connections through exploration and high-level questioning. It is an approach to learning that encourages students to engage the problem-solving and experiential learning. For example, a math teacher might demonstrate how to solve a problem in a traditional lesson, but during an inquiry-based lesson, the teacher can see how each student views a problem and the steps they take to get a solution in their own unique way. Next is the collaborative learning. It is broadly defined as a situation in which two or more people attempt to learn together by Dellenberg 1999 or to accomplish shared goals by Johnson and Johnson 1986. Collaborative learning examples are projects involves people working together in groups carrying out different activities, discussing ideas, forming opinions, justifying opinions, and other communication aspects. Next is the collaborative knowledge building. It focuses on problems and depth of understanding. It takes steps of the creation, testing, and improvement of conceptual artifacts in groups. It builds it the collaborative knowledge building adds to the communal way of seeing the world rather than enhancing only an individual's perspective. A knowledge building approach is appropriate when the subject matter is issue or problem focused rather than foundational. Next is the summary. Here's possible instructional strategies, two types of learning objectives. First is we have verbal information that is, we have the possible instructional strategies to it, the drill and practice, tutorial, program learning, games, lecture, mastery learning, and also direct teaching. And under intellectual skills, we have discrimination and concept use, we have drill and practice, tutorial, case study, lecture, inductive thinking, under classification, concept attainment, and advanced organizers. And then the rule using, this includes tutorial, exploratory learning, simulations, case study, games, lecture, and also debate. Well, in the problem solving, we have here exploratory learning, collaborative knowledge building, Socratic questioning, and also project-based learning. In cognitive strategy, we have exploratory learning, simulations, Socratic questioning, and group investigation. In attitude, we have role-playing, scenario analysis, classroom meeting, experience-based learning. And lastly, in motor skills, we have drill and practice, part task training, mastery learning, program learning, and also direct teaching. Now let's proceed to the types of technology for educational uses. We have here the four types. For the technologies for inquiry, technologies for communication, technologies for construction and problem solving, and also technologies for knowledge representation. So here are some of the technologies for inquiry. The visualization software, Google Repos, Facebook Insights in Excel, leaflet, just like this. It's like a brochure, knowledge representation, semantic network, mathematical models, spreadsheets, programs to make tables and graphs, and problem-solving programs. Next is the technologies for communication, just like email, asynchronous and synchronous computer conferencing. Say for example, the Moodle, the Masaw LMS, WebEx, Zoom, and also in World Wide Web. And also in technologies for construction and problem solving, we have Lego components here. the Tangram puzzles, the Rubik's cubes, computer-assisted design software here, and then the 3D printing. Next is the technologies for knowledge representation. It includes sensors and using technologies such as QR codes, GPS displays here, the graph and charts, drawing and painting programs or just like Adobe Photoshop, Sketchpad, Clip, Clip Studio Paint, GIMP, and Kritan, etc. Animation software includes Faceware Studios here and Blender. And also it has part music composing and editing, which mix is an example of an application of it. So next is the principles for the selection of technology for educational uses. We have 5. The principles of appropriateness, principle of authenticity, the principle of cost, the principle of interest, and lastly, the principle of organization and balance. In principle of appropriateness, the technology should promote the general and specific goals of the class. The technology should be appropriate to the intended level, including vocabulary level, difficulty of concepts, methods of development, and also interest appeal. The technology also should be either basic or supplementary to the curriculum. In principle of authenticity, we have the technology should present accurate, up-to-date, and dependable information. Next is the principle of cost. The substitutes and trade-offs of alternative solutions should also be considered. And principle of interest, the technology should catch the interest of the learners, must stimulate curiosity or satisfy the learner's needs to know. And the technology should have the power to motivate, encourage creativity, and imaginative response among users. And lastly is the principle of organization and balance. The technology should be well organized and well balanced in content. The purpose of the material should be clearly stated or perceived. And lastly, there should be logical organization, clarity, and accordance with the principles of learning, such as reinforcement, transfer, and application in the materials. So here's the key points in this chapter. First, the kinds of instructional strategies that should be selected depend on learning objectives and learning domains. The technologies should be aligned with instructional strategies. And secondly, in order to achieve the learning objectives, learners engage in learning activities such as inquiry, communication, construction, and knowledge representation. Types of learning and pedagogies should be considered when selecting appropriate technology. Third, pedagogical approaches relevant to the selection of technologies include practice and feedback approaches, representational approaches, collaboration approaches, project-based approaches, inquiry-based approaches, and informal and autonomous learning approaches. And lastly, the principles for the selection of technology. Educational uses include the principles of appropriateness, the principle of authenticity, the principle of cost, the principle of interest, and the principle of organization and balance. Here's our reference, The Educational Technology, a Primer for the 21st Century, as a PDF. So that's all. Thank you for listening. We hope that you learned something from our topics for today. Thank you and God bless. Have a great day.